We are calling out the Rangers for going soft after giving up a goal in the first period.
You're Locked on the New York Rangers, your daily podcast on the New York Rangers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back, Blue Shirts fans, to episode number 1420 of the Locked On New York Rangers podcast. I'm your host, John Chick. Just want to thank you guys, as always, for making Locked On New York Rangers your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. Download the FanDuel app right now by visiting FanDuel.com and win $300 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. And we are, of course, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the number one sports podcast network. And got a lot to talk about here. Obviously, the Rangers basically just embarrassed themselves against the Islanders, getting shut out again to start the season. This is an absolute just epidemic. It's basically a disease. The Rangers getting shut out at home this many times to start the season. But we're going to be talking about just a horrible habit that seems to be forming for the Rangers. We're going to start there. We're also going to get to the in-game line changes, which included a bizarre promotion for Conor Sheary. And then we're also going to talk a little bit about Centennial Night, which honestly, looking back at this game for the Rangers, that was about the lone highlight for this team on this night. But we begin with, again, the bad habit that I just referenced there. And what I'm talking about is that the Rangers, a couple of recent home games, obviously they've been shut out in both of them. That's actually like beside the point. But in both of those games, they unfolded eerily similar. I'm talking about the home loss against the Carolina Hurricanes, and now this home loss to the New York Islanders. In both of those games, the Rangers basically dominated for the first 8, 10, 12 minutes. They were rolling, they were swarming, they were getting all kinds of scoring chances. Maybe a nice save or two by the goalie. And at least in tonight's example, we had Mika Zibanejad firing a shot off the post. But this is a good start, right? The Rangers have done everything but score. Stop me if you've heard that before. But nevertheless, it's still an exciting start, an encouraging start. The Garden was buzzing. There was an offensive zone possession that the Rangers had early in this game in the first period that went on forever. And they didn't score, but you could kind of feel the Garden starting to buzz a little bit. There was a play stoppage not too long after that. And the Garden fans, they were cheering on the Rangers, and rightfully so, because they were off to a great start in this game. First shift of the game, we're talking like 8, 10, 12 seconds into the game. You got Mika Zibanejad with a slap shot. The save was made. Panarin was unable to bury the rebound. I do like how Mika Zibanejad just approached this puck, and he was just kind of laying there. And instead of looking to force a pass that maybe wasn't there, just approached the puck and absolutely drilled it. That was nice to see as well. Boyle said that he saw about 4 different body checks from JT Miller on his first shift. I don't know if it was that many, but apparently he did get Matthew Schaefer a couple of times. You've got good stuff happening here. Then you have Will Borgen drawing a penalty to put the Rangers on the power play. Now, the Rangers did score on the man advantage in the most recent game. I guess it was too much to ask for them to do the same thing in this game. Now, granted, they only had 2 opportunities, and I thought both their power play chances looked pretty good, but that's the story of the season so far. They create good scoring chances, both at 5v5 and on the power play, and they cannot finish said chances. And it was more the same here. You've got JT Miller with a clean win back to Adam Fox. Panarin down low to Mika. Mika tried to go across the crease to Will Cooley, who couldn't convert. Will Cooley was creating all kinds of havoc here. He was in front of the net. There was a situation where JT Miller passing deep to Will Cooley. Cooley spun around, tried to stuff in attempt, and obviously it would not go because the Rangers, did not score a goal on this night. But the Rangers were buzzing here, and this at least looked good. You had a situation not too long after this where Mika Zibanejad fired a shot off the pipe, and again, you feel like that goal is on the way. Or maybe you don't feel that way because you've watched this team this season and you know how it's gone. This pretty much stayed pretty close to the script that we've seen for all the Ranger home games this season. But then the Rangers give up a goal, and you've got a situation here where it goes back the other way after the Rangers had a scoring chance in the offensive zone. JT Miller in front for Will Cooley. A tip-in went wide, went back the other way, and Horvat ends up scoring a go-ahead goal. Obviously, a go-ahead goal, the first goal of the game for the Islanders. Now, this was obviously unfortunate because, like I said, the Rangers to this point, about midway through the first period here, had very clearly the better of play, more shots, more time in the offensive zone, more scoring chances. They looked quicker. Everything was going the Rangers' way. They were skating better, the whole 9 yards. And unfortunately, it goes the other way, and the Islanders get one. But you can live with that. Like the Islanders made a play here. They got a save on their side of the ice, and then it goes the other way. They were very quick in transition. Absolutely perfect pass, absolutely perfect finish by Horvat on the doorstep there. So I'm not going to get too mad at Igor on this one. I'm not going to get too mad at the Rangers on this one either. If you watch the replay, they were all back checking. They were doing everything they could to get back and get in position and try to break up the scoring chance. Weren't able to do it. The Islanders score. They make it 1-0. What bothers me much more than the goal is the Rangers' response to it. It's unacceptable for this to happen because the same thing happened against the Canes. Again, domination for the first half of the first period. You give up a goal, and all of a sudden you deflate. The Rangers never for a second in either one of these games, tonight or the game against the Canes, got back to the level that we saw them play at for the first 8 or 10 or 12 minutes of that game. And as far as the reason for it, I mean, you can't deflate that much just because you give up a goal. If anything, that should fuel you. That should motivate you to keep going because the Rangers know just as well as anybody, even after the Islanders scored this goal, that they had been dominating this game. So, okay, you took their best shot, throw a counterpunch, get right back at it, get right back going again. The Rangers just looked disjointed after this. And the first warning sign that this wasn't going to go the Rangers' way after this goal was scored actually occurred on the very next shift, because you had a situation where Pajot went up the right side, pretty much uncontested, and Igor was able to make a pad save on this one. But just the way that they allowed him to get to the net the way that they did in this spot here, that was obviously not good. And then the Rangers special, giving up a goal at the end of a period. Now, it hasn't happened quite as much this season, I don't think, proportionately to last season, but it still happened a couple of times and probably at least a few too many times. And even if situations where the Ranger opponent isn't necessarily scoring, they're still getting good scoring chances at the end of periods, at least from time to time, and it's obviously not good. But you've got a situation here where Druin is able to score through the 5-hole. Igor opened up and right through the wickets there, and just like that, 2-0 Islanders with 33 seconds to go in the period. This was all set up by a turnover by Mika Zibanejad in the neutral zone, who otherwise I thought had a pretty good night, but a turnover here. And Gavrikov, not really sure what he was doing here. He had already started up the ice, and because of that, the Islanders got a golden scoring chance out of this. And, Boyle was talking about how at this point in the period, you basically just want to establish your territory, and the Rangers didn't do that here. I don't know if they were cheating for offense or what happened, but out of nowhere, scoring chance for the Islanders, and obviously they're able to convert. The first goal of this game, I'm not going to put it on Igor because it was, again, perfect pass, perfect shot, nicely done. I think he's got to make a save here. I think he's got to make a save here. And honestly, the third goal that the Islanders scored as well, would have liked to have been able to see him keep that one out of the net as well. But I got to give a shout out, all this said, to Big Z on Twitter. He sent this to me. I was talking to a couple of you guys during the game here. And so Big Z had to say on Twitter, John, a horrible stat for you. The NHL record for a team with the most shutouts on home ice in an NHL season is 8 by the Montreal Canadiens in the 1928-1929 season. The Rangers would be at 5 after tonight if they get shut out. And of course, we now know that the Rangers did indeed get shut out. I mean, they are on pace to absolutely shatter this record. I mean, it can't go on at this kind of a pace. They've been shut out 5 times. Right now, I mean, so how many home games have they played? Like 7, I think? So they'd be on pace to get shut out I'm trying to do some quick math here. That would be I think about 30 times in the season, 30 shutouts at home. I mean, that obviously is not going to continue at that rate, but would I be surprised if they broke that NHL record that's now stood for almost a century? No. And for the Rangers, it would be all the more fitting for them, I feel like, to do that in their centennial season. Again, it won't continue at this rate, but the issues that the Rangers have had at home are very clearly, causing this team to play poorly. I mean, I don't know what exactly is causing it. I don't know how to put my finger on everything that's happened. We've thrown out a couple different theories. The idea that maybe defensive hockey tends to work a little bit better on the road than at home, which obviously the Rangers have committed more to defense this season, and that's clearly a good thing. But that wasn't the case tonight. I mean, again, the Rangers came out flying in this game. Looked like they were going to score a whole barrage of goals, and obviously it never happened, and they got back on their heels, and like I said, just never recovered from it. Again, to collapse after the first goal after you were dominating this game is absolutely infuriating. And I did see a couple of people try to blame the fans for the issues that the Rangers have had at home this season. And while I will acknowledge that probably doesn't help, Ranger fans, they were booing a little bit in this game. I can't put it on the fans. They're frustrated, just like the players should be frustrated, just like the players are frustrated. And look, Ranger fans, I include myself in this, we can be a very demanding bunch. And obviously we can be tough on these players from time to time. But you know what? It's a passionate fan base, and they're going to cheer you when things are going well. They're going to boo when things are going as poorly as they're going right now, at least on home ice. Rangers have obviously been road warriors to start the season. But I mean, you can't blame the fans for the lack of execution, the lack of finish at home. And I don't know, maybe the Ranger players are a little bit more comfortable playing on the road, but sooner or later, you're going to have to figure this out. You score a couple goals, just watch how fast those fans will turn in your favor. They absolutely will. So, yep, that's where things stand with this bad habit that the Rangers have formed here. And you're obviously not able to recover from early goals, and it just kind of snowballs the rest of the game and hasn't been good these last two home games. Again, tonight against the Islanders and before that against the Canes. So in just a minute, the Rangers at least try to make a couple of adjustments in this game. Going to talk about some of the line shuffling that occurred in the third period. I mean, really, it was just one player for one player, but we're going to call out the Rangers for what I thought was just a bizarre coaching decision by Mike Sullivan, promoting somebody who made a mistake in this game, and basically immediately after he made this mistake. So we'll get to that in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by Indeed. You just realized your business needed to hire somebody yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy, just use Indeed. When it comes to hiring, Indeed is all you need. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed sponsored jobs put your job at the top of the page and help you reach the right candidates faster. We've all been in that spot where we need to hire somebody like yesterday. The pressure is on, and every day without the right person is a setback. That's exactly when Indeed's sponsored jobs come in handy. They make sure your post is seen by the right candidates right now. Now you can speed up your hiring process with a $75 sponsored job credit. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring, Indeed, is all that you need. All right, let's go ahead and keep everything rolling here on Locked On New York Rangers. Big shout out to the everydayers. As always, thank you guys so much for supporting this podcast, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. So we're going to continue right along here. Some other, I was going to say highlights, I guess lowlights from this game, and that would also include the third period. And again, just a very strange, decision from Mike Sullivan and the coaching staff. So, they're getting shut out again because what else is new? They're playing at home. So, of course, the Rangers are getting shut out. In other news, the sky is blue. But they decided to flip-flop Conor Sheary and Taylor Radish. And on the surface, I mean, it's fine. Sheary jumps up to the first line. Radish goes down to the third line. It's not the end of the world. But what kind of annoyed me about this is that it happened right after Sheary took a bad penalty against Schaefer. There was a situation, at least was in the defensive zone, but the puck was along the boards, and he basically hooked Schaefer, and I just didn't think there was any real need to do that in that situation. You're in a spot where you're struggling for offense, you're trying to rally, and you take a penalty that you don't need to take. And when it happened, I'm wondering to myself, I wonder if Sheary's going to get punished for this. I wonder if, he'll lose a couple of shifts or maybe even be benched the rest of the way. It wasn't the most egregious penalty you'll ever see in your life, but it was not a good penalty either. And no, that doesn't happen. He actually gets rewarded because it was not long after this, once we got into the third period, that Conor Sheary is promoted from the third line to the first line. He's out there with Artemi Panarin and Mika Zibanejad. This is the guy with no goals and 5 assists through, I think now, 15 or 16 games with the New York Rangers? And this despite the fact that Sheary has spent at least some time in the top 6. He's typically on the third line, but we've seen him play up a couple of times this season. And, that's your big solution here. And I realize options are limited, especially with Trocheck still injured, and he cannot get back in this lineup fast enough because they are so thin, especially when it comes to scoring. But that's your big move, Conor Sheary up to the top line with Panarin and Mika Zibanejad. Okay. And I haven't really hated on Sheary all that much, but facts are facts here. There's times where I feel like he's played better than his stat line would indicate, but the guy's not producing offensively. There's no results to be had here. You could say the same thing about a lot of players on this team, but I don't know. Conor Sheary to the top line. Okay. So that's what they did. Now, if nothing else, the Rangers did at least get it going a little bit in the third period. They started to create a couple more scoring chances. They ended up, this surprised me. I knew their shots on goal went up a little bit in the third period. 18 shots on goal for the Rangers in the third period. As far as why they didn't score, I mean, only a few of them I think you can consider high danger. There were a couple of nice saves by Sorokin mixed in there as well. Maybe not enough second chance opportunities for the Rangers on some of these shots either. But as far as like the highlights from the third period, a couple of chances where I thought these guys were maybe going to score. The fourth line was still intact. You had Parsonen and Carrick and Himlash. And early in the third period, you had Carrick spinning with the puck, shooting. The save was made. Himlash almost was able to stuff it home, but wasn't able to do it. I mean, that's something that in theory, could snap the Rangers out of it a little bit. I mean, everybody kind of gets a boost, I think, when somebody gets their first goal, their first point in the NHL. And, Himlash has been close a couple of times here. Certainly in the first game, a couple of deflection attempts, and at least in this instance here, looked like he had a chance to score. Just a better pad save by Sorokin on the play. And then you had Mika passing down the right side to Panarin, shot taken, save was made. And then there was a scramble. Lafreniere was there. Fox had a pass down to Lafreniere, and he tries to stuff at home. He can't do it. Cooley's there. He can't stuff at home either. Just wouldn't go. Just would not go. And unfortunately, obviously, this move of flip-flopping Radish and Sheary didn't lead to any different results on the scoreboard. That is for sure. I'll be curious to see what they do in the next game. I mean, they're back in action on Monday against the Predators at home. Oh, God, it's at home. It's at home. So that means, by the way, I did look at the schedule right before hitting record here. If the Rangers can't beat the Predators at home on Monday, first of all, that's not good. But secondly, they will go past the midway point in November without a single home win this season, because the next couple of games after that would be on the road. I mean, they got to win that game. And I don't mean got to like they have to do it, that there's a need to win the game. I mean, like it's got to happen, right? Like by law of averages, sooner or later, you just have to win a game at home. And hopefully if that does happen, it gets the monkey off their back a little bit and they pick it up from there. But as far as some other lineup decisions, there were a couple made before the puck even dropped. You had Vakanainen back in for Robertson. Vakanainen had been a little bit banged up for a couple of games, so they went with Robertson. I mean, it wouldn't have made a difference in this game. I mean, the idea that Matthew Robertson being in this game over Vakanainen would have given the Rangers a win is laughable, but I don't know. I still lean toward Robertson a little bit here, but I guess we'll see how it goes. I just feel like he's outplayed Vakanainen so far. And yeah, Robertson spent a whole ton of time in the AHL with the Hartford Wolfpack, but it's time to see what he can do, in my very humble opinion. And I feel like with Vakanainen, we've already seen his ceiling. His ceiling at best is like a number 6 defenseman in the NHL. I mean, you can get by with him there for a few games, but I'd like to see Robertson get a little bit more run. Also of note in this game, Edstrom and Himlash were out there during warmups, and I'm not sure if the Rangers feel that Edstrom is ready to go. I mean, during the last game when Edstrom was a healthy scratch, Sullivan did mention that he was banged up as well. So I don't know if Edstrom got like the healthy scratch designation in this one, but either way, he was out of the lineup for the second straight game. And as I mentioned just a second ago, obviously still no Vincent Trocheck. And I feel like he's somebody that can really obviously help the Rangers right now. I mean, they are so paper thin when it comes to their scoring depth. And I feel like Trocheck is a good guy to have in the lineup for some of these home games. He can get the crowd going a little bit. He'll find a way to get under somebody's skin out there and get the crowd buzzing a little bit. And obviously, a tenacious player, a guy that can help the Rangers in a lot of different ways. Kind of a vibes guy is Vincent Trocheck. And I feel like having him and his grittiness in the lineup, that's something that can help the Rangers, particularly in home games where obviously they've struggled so much this season. But we're going to keep everything going in just a second. We're going to talk about something fun, Centennial Night. Other than that, I don't really know what else was fun about this game if you're a Ranger fan, but we're going to talk about that. Sam Rosenbach, obviously always good to see Sam and hear from Sam, and we'll just talk about all that in just a second. All right, we just want to take a minute to let everybody know that today's episode of Locked On New York Rangers is brought to you by FanDuel. The NBA is back, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game or you want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets on everything from who will score next to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay for a shot at a bigger payout. It keeps every game exciting, especially when your team is making that late push. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So head to FanDuel.com to sign up and play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, let's go ahead and keep everything rolling here on Locked On New York Rangers. Let's close out the day by talking a little bit about something nice. First of all, we got to get this out of the way right off the bat here. So the Rangers lost. We know that. They are now 0-2 on Centennial theme nights. There's going to be 8 of these throughout the year. Every night's going to have a different theme. Tonight was milestones and moments, and I thought the Rangers did a really nice job by this. But if you're surprised by the fact that the Rangers are 0-2 on these Centennial nights so far this season, then you must be new here, because if there's anything special going on in Madison Square Garden before, during, or I guess even after a Ranger game, it's a pretty good bet that the Rangers are going to lose the game, whether it's either of these 2 Centennial nights, whether it's Garden of Dreams night, whether it's Military Appreciation night, whatever it might be, the Rangers are going to lose. Henrik Lundqvist, we had his jersey going up into the Madison Square Garden rafters not too long ago. The Rangers lost on that night. If something special, something cool, something fun is happening in the Garden, the Rangers will find a way to ruin it. And I wish that was an exaggeration. It's not much of one. They tend to lose these nights more often than not. Even when they're good, even when they have good seasons, I feel like they lose at a very disproportionate rate whenever there's something going on in Madison Square Garden, something that's bigger than the game. But it was awesome to see Sam Rosen back in the house. He was out there at the podium during the pregame ceremony, had the big 100 logo with the Rangers shield there. That was pretty cool. And Sam did a great job introducing a bunch of guests of honor for the night for the Rangers. You had Pete Stemkowski. He scored a triple overtime winner for the Rangers in the 1971 semifinals in Game 6 to send the Rangers to the Cup final, scored on a rebound, and he was there, was Stemkowski, and he joined Sam Rosen out there. And then you had a little bit of a tribute to the 1979 team that made it to the Stanley Cup final. They showed a big goal by Ron Greshner. They also showed some awesome goaltending by John Davidson, JD. And that obviously was a win that vaulted the Rangers to the 1979 Stanley Cup final. And Greshner and Davidson were both out there for the proceedings. And let me just say, it's really nice that JD still comes back to, Madison Square Garden every so often and participates in things like this. There was a game last season where kind of is I don't want to call it a gimmick because it was a really nice thing, but basically they had Sam Rosen and John Davidson calling a game together for the first time in forever. I think it was close to 20 years at that point. God, can that even be right? 20 years? I think it was pretty close to 20 years, though. So that was cool. He's been back for other events as well, but very nice that, for somebody that was fired in such a unceremonious fashion and kind of out of the blue, and in some ways, I think kind of unjustly as well, he hasn't held it against them. He comes back for the fans and he comes back for his former teammates. And in a couple of different instances, I think he's come back for Sam Rosen as well. But they were both in the building, were Davidson and Greshner. Stefan Matteau, for my money, that is the biggest goal in Ranger history. I don't even need to tell you which one it was, but I will anyway. Game 7, 1994 against the Devils, double overtime, wraparound goal, Matteau. And very nice that he was out there for this as well. For 1994, the Stanley Cup final, Game 7, they had Adam Graves out there. Now, don't get me wrong. I always like to see Adam Graves, and by all accounts, just a quality, awesome human being. Just somebody that he'll treat you like, you're his longtime best friend if you ever get a chance to meet him, and that's all well and good and everything. But I was kind of surprised that Mark Messier wasn't there. And I don't know. I mean, I know he does the desk for ESPN. I don't know if he had work tonight. I would think that he could probably get a night off if he needed to, but a little bit curious that Messier wasn't there. But it's always good to see Adam Graves and certainly Mike Richter as well. He was there. They were showing video highlights for all these different moments throughout Ranger history as well. And they, of course, showed Graves' goal in Game 7 against the Canucks. And they also showed the big penalty shot stop that Mike Richter had against Pavel Bure in Game 4 of the Stanley Cup final. For anybody that might not be familiar with this, or you just need a refresher, the Rangers were up 2-1 in Game 4 in Vancouver. But the Canucks were up 2-1 in this game. And you get a penalty shot for Bure. Richter makes an awesome right pad save, kick save, keeps it out. Rangers eventually rally to win that game and take a 3-1 series lead. And as we all know, went to 7 games. Canucks won games 5 and 6, but the Rangers brought it home in Game 7. But it is impossible to overstate the importance of that save that Mike Richter made in that spot against one of the most dangerous scores in the NHL at that time. They showed Henrik Lundqvist making the awesome save against Thomas Vanek in Game 6 against the Montreal Canadiens in 2014. The Rangers went on to win that game 1-0 on a goal by Dominic Moore. And obviously, Henrik Lundqvist was phenomenal in that game, and that launched them to the Stanley Cup final that season. And then 2015, Game 7 overtime winner. You had Derek Stepan out there for that one. He scored in overtime against the Caps in round 2 to send the Rangers to the Eastern Conference final. And we don't need to worry about what happened in the series after that, but it was a cool moment when it happened, at least. But yeah, I mean, it was awesome. Brian Boyle, they went back to the announcers after this whole ceremony had concluded, and he talked about, just how proud he was, how blessed he was to play for this Ranger franchise. He really put over the fans and how passionate they are and how much moments like this mean to the fans. And I can definitely attest to that, man. You watch all these players come out there, and it's all these different eras of Ranger hockey, but all these unbelievably clutch, iconic moments in Ranger history. And it really does hit you. For me, I've been able to experience the vast majority of these, and some of you have been able to see every single one of these moments. You can go all the way back to the goal by Pete Stemkowski in Game 6 in 1971. Some of you I know are going to leave a comment and tell me about where you were and what you were doing when he scored this goal. And I think that's awesome. That was a little bit before my time, but I got to see everything from 1994, and that was amazing. And then you go on from there and you see Henrik Lundqvist in 2014 and Derek Stepan in 2015, and you see all these different eras of Ranger hockey. And if you want to go to current times, who could forget Panarin in Game 7 against the Penguins? They didn't acknowledge that one because obviously Panarin is still playing and he's getting ready for the game. But it's just so cool. It's very, very, I don't even know what the word is, like humbling, I guess, gratifying to know that you've seen all this stuff. You've been a part of Ranger history and all these different eras of Ranger history. It's really a cool thing. Stanley Cups, as we know, are few and far between for this franchise, but they are not short on like epic moments, unforgettable moments that you certainly remember where you were and who you're with and what you were doing when they occurred. So that was awesome. And, it's funny because Kenny Albert asked Boyle in the booth, whether a pregame ceremony like this can fire up the team a little bit and get them moving and get them going early in a game. And, Boyle pretty much confirmed that, yes, it can. I don't have the exact quote in front of me, but that's what he said. And again, in the first 10 or 12 minutes of this game, that's exactly what it looked like was happening. The Rangers had a little jump, little boost, little energy, maybe partially due to that pregame ceremony and seeing all these epic New York Ranger moments. And then, like I said, the Islanders scored a goal and the Rangers decided they had enough. And that was just obviously very, very disappointing. But Sam Rosen, that is, did an interview with John Giannone during the second intermission there. And he's talking about, he's telling some cool stories and talking about how he's spending his time with his family, doing a lot of golfing. He said mediocre golfing, and he has to work on that a little bit. He also mentioned that like watching games, I thought this was kind of funny. He'll still kind of call the games in his head as they're going on, but he's a fan just like the rest of us at this point. He gets excited and he'll yell at the TV when something bad happens. So that's kind of funny to see. It's got to be jarring to go from calling all these games, basically every single Ranger game for 4 decades, and then all of a sudden, you're watching at home on your couch. But it sounds like he's very happy. He's enjoying his retirement, and he certainly has earned it. So it's awesome to see Sam back in the building. Awesome to see all these Ranger legends back in the building. I just wish the current Rangers would have put forth a little bit better of an effort than the one that they gave to us and all these legends on this night. But like I said, it's kind of par for the course. If there is a theme at a Ranger game in Madison Square Garden, they will find a way to mess it up. And that's what they did on this evening here tonight. But we'll call it there. If you guys would like to get in touch with this podcast, please send an email to lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Once again, that is lockedonnyrangers@gmail.com. Definitely give us a follow on Twitter as well, @jchick17. Once again, @jchik17. And definitely subscribe to Locked On New York Rangers YouTube channel. Thanks again, guys. I will see you next time.